The warm Sunday dinners at my parents' house used to be my anchor until last month when Dad dropped that bomb. "You are just jealous of your brother because he is successful, and you are just a handyman worker," he said loud enough for everyone to hear. I laughed and walked away, choosing dignity over drama. What my father failed to understand was that my hands built more than just furniture. This morning I had 53 missed calls on my phone. Before I tell you what happened, where are you watching from? Drop a like and subscribe if you have ever been underestimated by family. My workshop always felt more like home than anywhere else. The scent of cedar and pine, the gentle hum of machinery, and the satisfaction of transforming raw materials into something beautiful gave me purpose. I had built my handyman business from scratch over 8 years, specializing in custom furniture that blended functionality with artistry. My hands were calloused but capable, creating pieces that told stories through grain patterns and joinery techniques passed down through generations. My brother Jason took a different path, the golden child. Harvard Law, corporate litigation, designer suits, and luxury cars. Every family gathering became his stage to announce bonuses, promotions, and exotic vacations. Our parents beamed with pride at their son, who chose briefcases over workbenches. I never resented his choices until others weaponized them against mine. Throughout childhood, comparisons were constant. Jason aced another exam while I built treehouses. Jason won debate tournaments while I restored antique dressers. Different talents unequally valued. Last Sunday started like any other family dinner. I arrived at my parents' colonial-style home carrying a handcrafted mahogany jewelry box for their upcoming 40th anniversary. The wood was sourced from a historic building downtown, each piece carefully selected for its character and story. I had spent weeks perfecting the hidden compartments and custom inlay work, featuring their wedding date in brass. Mom answered the door with a quick hug. "Your brother just got here," she said already, turning back toward the dining room. Inside, Jason stood holding court in his tailored suit despite the casual setting. Dad clapped him on the shoulder while my mother served his favorite appetizers. When I presented my gift, Mom smiled politely. "That is nice, honey. We will put it somewhere special," she said, placing it on a side table without opening it. The conversation immediately shifted to Jason clearing his throat. "I have some big news," he announced. "The firm is making me junior partner next month. Comes with a substantial bonus and corner office. Might finally buy that lake house we have been eyeing." The celebration that followed was extravagant, with champagne, detailed questions, and genuine enthusiasm I rarely witnessed for my achievements. During dinner, I mentioned the possibility of expanding my workshop to accommodate larger projects and maybe taking on an apprentice. "That sounds expensive," Dad commented, eyebrows raised. "Are you sure your little business can handle that kind of overhead?" Before I could answer, Jason chimed in. "Not everyone needs to chase corporate success, Dad. Some people are content with simpler aspirations." His smile seemed supportive, but his words carried the sting of condescension. I explained that I had been approached by several high-end interior designers, wanting exclusive pieces. The business was growing steadily, and demand was outpacing my capacity. Mom nodded absently while serving Jason seconds of her pot roast. "Tell us more about that corner office, sweetie. Does it have the view of the park you wanted?" I tried once more. "Actually, I have been saving to purchase specialized equipment that would allow me to create signature designs no one else in the region offers." That is when Dad put down his fork and looked directly at me. "Let us be honest here. You are just jealous of your brother because he is successful and you are just a handyman worker. Not everyone can be exceptional, and that is okay." The table fell silent. Mom looked down at her plate. Jason had the decency to appear uncomfortable. I felt heat rising in my face, but refused to show how deeply those words cut. Instead, I laughed softly and stood up. "Thanks for dinner, Mom," I said calmly. "I have early client meetings tomorrow." I walked away with my head high, leaving my untouched dessert and the jewelry box behind. The drive home was a blur of streetlights and suppressed emotions. Rain started falling, matching my mood as I replayed those words over and over. Just a handyman worker. As if creating with my hands somehow made me lesser. As if my chosen path deserved dismissal rather than respect. The week following that dinner was challenging. I found myself distracted in the workshop, making careless mistakes that wasted valuable materials. While sanding, a tabletop memories surfaced of my father dismissing my seventh-grade woodshop project while framing Jason's debate trophy. The pattern stretched across decades, yet recognizing it did nothing to lessen the sting. My phone buzzed constantly with superficial family messages. Mom texting about weather and neighborhood gossip. Dad sending sports scores without addressing what happened. Jason checking in with artificial concern. How is the handyman business treating you these days? Each notification reopened the wound. I immersed myself in work, instead staying late in the shop where the rhythm of creation drowned out everything else. On Wednesday, an unexpected email arrived from Westbrook Hotels, a luxury chain expanding throughout the Northeast. They wanted to discuss custom furnishing 3 new boutique locations with artisan-crafted pieces that showcased local craftsmanship. The potential contract would be the biggest opportunity of my career, easily dwarfing my annual income if secured. The inquiry came through a design magazine feature on my work months earlier. In our initial video call, their procurement director explained they wanted something unique for their properties, not the mass-produced furniture typical of hotel chains. We are building our brand around authentic experiences, she said. Your work has exactly the character and quality we are looking for. I spent days preparing detailed sketches and material samples, creating miniature prototypes that demonstrated joinery techniques and finish options. This opportunity could transform my business from a one-man operation to something with legitimate growth potential, yet I kept it to myself. No family calls mentioned the possibility. Some part of me feared their dismissal would jinx this chance, while another part simply wanted success uncontaminated by their judgment. The pressure mounted when Westbrook requested sample pieces within 3 weeks. I would need to showcase my best work while maintaining my existing client commitments. Sleep became optional as I divided days between regular projects and creating spectacular demonstration pieces for the hotel executives. Then, disaster struck. My supplier for figured maple, a wood with unique grain patterns essential for the hotel samples, called with devastating news. Sorry, Brad, but that warehouse fire in Portland destroyed our entire specialty hardwood inventory, he explained. Nothing comparable available for at least 2 months. My deadline was in 18 days. I called every supplier in a 300-mile radius with no luck. The specific character and quality I needed simply was not available on short notice. My designs required this particular wood selected specifically to impress the hotel chain. Panic set in, as I realized my biggest opportunity might collapse before it began. That same evening, Jason called boasting about putting a down payment on a vacation property in Aspen. You should see this place, bro, he said. Private hot tub overlooking the mountains. We are going to host the firm partners for ski weekends. Must have cost his monthly salary, but seemingly worth every penny in his estimation. I barely registered his words, mind racing through potential solutions to my supply crisis. The irony was painful. While he celebrated excess, I fought to keep my shot at sustainability. The next morning brought another crisis. A pipe burst in my workshop water, damaging several client projects and shorting out 2 essential machines. I spent hours salvaging what I could, rescheduling deliveries, and fighting with insurance representatives who seemed determined to minimize the claim. In the midst of this chaos, my parents called, inviting me to dinner to talk about your future. The timing and phrasing made clear they planned some sort of intervention about my career choices, now viewed as even more questionable after our last encounter. I declined politely, explaining the workshop flood without mentioning the hotel opportunity. Their thinly veiled disappointment traveled through the phone line. Instead of succumbing to despair, I channeled frustration into creativity. If traditional suppliers could not provide what I needed, perhaps unconventional sources might. I contacted historical preservation societies, architectural salvage yards, and restoration companies throughout the region. After countless calls, I discovered a 19th-century textile mill being carefully dismantled downtown. The building featured rare old-growth maple with figure patterns even more distinctive than what I had originally planned. Securing those materials required navigating complex permissions, higher costs, and logistical challenges. I negotiated terms allowing me to hand-pick specific sections of reclaimed wood, spending an entire day at the demolition site selecting perfect pieces while breathing decades of dust. Each beam told a story of American manufacturing history now destined for rebirth through my hands. With materials secured, I faced a new obstacle: The flood damage meant working without crucial equipment. I borrowed tools from colleagues, improvised techniques, and worked 20-hour days to stay on schedule. My hands developed new blisters over existing calluses. I subsisted on coffee and determination, focused entirely on transforming crisis into opportunity. The morning of my presentation to Westbrook Hotels arrived with unexpected complications. Loading my carefully created sample pieces into the delivery van, I discovered the hotel executives had moved our meeting earlier due to flight schedules. Instead of the 3 hours I had planned for setup and preparation, I now had barely 90 minutes to transport everything downtown, arrange the display, and prepare my presentation. As I rushed to secure the last piece, my phone erupted with calls. Jason, then Mom, then Dad, then Jason again. I ignored them all, focusing on the task at hand. Whatever family drama was unfolding would need to wait. This meeting represented everything I had worked toward. Halfway to the hotel, stopped at a traffic light, I finally answered Jason's 7th consecutive call. "Brad, I need you right now." His voice trembled with unfamiliar desperation. "The firm is under federal investigation. They are saying some of the partners falsified evidence in the Westlake corporate case. I did not know, I swear, but they have emails where I discussed document handling procedures that look bad out of context." My brother, always composed and confident, was unraveling in real time. The fear in his voice was genuine, and despite everything, it affected me. "What do you need me to do?" I asked, watching minutes tick away before my presentation. "Mom and Dad are freaking out. The press might contact them. I need somewhere to lay low while my lawyer handles this. Can I come to your place, please? I have never asked you for anything." That last statement was so divorced from reality I almost laughed. His entire life had been built on asking and receiving, while mine developed through working and earning. The timing could not have been worse, with everything I had built hanging in the balance. "I am sorry, Jason, but I am heading into the most important meeting of my career," I said firmly. "I cannot help you right now." "Are you serious?" he shouted, anger replacing vulnerability. "This is my life we are talking about. What meeting could possibly be more important than your brother facing criminal charges?" For the first time, I did not yield to his priorities. "When I have built something of my own, I will explain, but right now, I need to focus on my future, not drop everything for yours again." I ended the call as I pulled up to the hotel. More notifications flooded my screen, including voicemails from my parents with escalating urgency. I silenced the phone completely and channeled my attention toward the presentation that awaited. The Westbrook executives were already seated in the conference room when I arrived. With practiced composure that belied my internal chaos, I began unveiling the sample pieces and explaining the vision behind them. The reclaimed maple from the historic mill became the centerpiece of my presentation. Each piece of furniture I create tells a story, I explained, running my hand along the grain pattern that had witnessed a century and a half of American history. This wood comes from the Bradford textile mill that helped build this city. Now it begins a new chapter honoring that heritage while serving a fresh purpose. Their procurement director leaned forward, clearly intrigued. What inspired this approach? We expected contemporary designs. I smiled, finding steady ground in my expertise. Contemporary does not have to mean disconnected from history. These pieces bridge time, offering hotel guests something authentic in a world of replicas. Each room will feature furniture with unique grain patterns and historical significance pieces that could never be mass-produced. As they examined the craftsmanship and innovative designs, I noticed the hotel owner typing something on his phone. My heart sank, assuming he was disengaged, until he turned the screen toward his colleagues. "This just broke in the business news," he said. "The Hamilton Law Group is under federal investigation for evidence tampering. Apparently they represented several of our competitors." His eyes met mine. Any connection to this firm would be problematic for us. I felt the universe presenting a cruel test. The firm he mentioned was Jason's employer. Acknowledging my brother would potentially link me to a scandal that could sink this opportunity. Denying him felt both disloyal and dishonest. I chose integrity. "Hamilton is my brother's firm," I acknowledged. "We are not close, and I have no connection to their business practices. My work stands entirely on its own merits." The silence that followed seemed eternal, until the owner nodded slowly. "I appreciate your honesty. In my experience, people who craft with their hands tend to live by a different code than those who manipulate words for a living. He gestured to the furniture samples. This level of craftsmanship requires integrity in every step. You cannot take shortcuts and achieve these results. By the meeting's conclusion, they had not only approved my proposal but expanded it to include custom pieces for their executive suites and lobby installations. The contract value tripled my initial estimates. As we shook hands, the procurement director made one final comment. "We chose you because your work has substance and authenticity." In a world of veneer and imitation that is increasingly rare and valuable, walking out of that meeting, I turned my phone back on to find 37 missed calls and 16 text messages. The most recent was from my father. "Call immediately. Family emergency. Jason has been detained for questioning. Need you home now." I stood in the hotel lobby, success in one hand and family crisis in the other. For the first time, I did not automatically subordinate my achievements to their emergencies. Instead, I called my new clients to confirm next steps, before driving to my parents' house, arriving on my timeline rather than theirs. The scene that greeted me was chaotic. Mom pacing the living room, Dad arguing with someone on the phone, and the local news playing footage of Jason being escorted from his office building. When they noticed me, relief quickly transformed into accusation. "Where have you been?" Dad demanded. "We have been calling for hours. Your brother needs us." "I was securing the biggest contract of my career," I replied calmly. "The one you would have advised me to abandon for Jason's emergency." "This is serious," Brad Mom interjected. "They are saying Jason knew about falsified evidence in cases against major corporations. His firm might have been destroying documents." The Golden Child's reputation was crumbling in real time. As details emerged through news reports and frantic calls from Jason's wife, the truth became unavoidable. My brother had been complicit in unethical practices for years, turning a blind eye to corruption while collecting bonuses built on deliberate deception. "When was the last time any of you asked about my business with this level of interest?" I asked, watching their expressions shift. "When did my work merit urgent calls or family meetings?" "That is different." Dad started, but I interrupted him. "No, it is not. You define success by title and salary, while dismissing the value of honest work. Now you are seeing the difference between appearing successful and being worthy of respect." For the first time in our adult relationship, my father had no ready response. The facade had finally cracked, revealing the hollow achievement he had celebrated while criticizing my substance. The following weeks brought dramatic changes to both our lives. While Jason faced legal scrutiny and professional disgrace, my business transformed through the Westbrook contract. Local media covered the hotel's commitment to featuring artisanal craftsmanship, bringing unexpected attention to my workshop. Suddenly, the very hands my father had dismissed were being celebrated for their skill and integrity. Every morning brought new opportunities in my inbox. Designers, architects, and private clients, seeking the authenticity that had become my signature. I hired 2 apprentices, invested in advanced equipment, and expanded my workshop to accommodate growing demand. The morning I awoke to 53 missed calls marked another turning point. 15 were from potential clients who had seen the hotel feature. 8 from media outlets requesting interviews about sustainable craftsmanship. 20 from friends and colleagues offering congratulations. The remaining 10 came from family, their urgent tone evolving from demands to hesitant requests for conversation. I returned calls, selectively prioritizing business opportunities and supportive friends. By midday, I had scheduled 3 major client consultations and 2 magazine interviews. The family calls waited until evening, when I could approach them with the clarity of established boundaries. Dad spoke first when I finally called back. There was an unfamiliar hesitation in his voice. "Your furniture is on the front page of the business section," he said. "The article calls you a visionary craftsman revitalizing traditional techniques for modern luxury markets." The validation clearly confused him, challenging his entire framework for measuring worth. I said nothing, allowing the silence to communicate what words had failed to convey for years. "I might have been wrong about some things," he finally admitted. "Your brother made choices I thought represented success. Now I am not so sure." It was the closest thing to an apology his generation typically offered. Not explicit recognition of harm done, but an acknowledgement that his judgment had been flawed. I accepted it as a starting point rather than a destination. Jason reached out a week later after being released on bail pending further investigation. His call came while I was finishing a conference table commissioned by a sustainable technology firm. I really messed up, Brad, he confessed, humility replacing his usual confidence. All those years chasing what I thought mattered, and now it is gone. How did you know to choose differently? I continued applying finish to the table edge while responding. I did not choose differently to prove anything. I followed what felt authentic and brought me genuine satisfaction. The external validation was never the point. Our conversation marked the beginning of honest communication between us. For the first time, he asked questions about my craft with sincere interest rather than performative support. I shared insights without resentment, explaining how creating with integrity had anchored me through years of being underestimated. The most meaningful conversation happened when my parents visited my expanded workshop a month later. Dad ran his hand along a partially completed dining table, studying the joinery techniques with newfound appreciation. You build things that last, he said quietly. Things with purpose and beauty. I never really understood what that meant until now. Mom wiped away tears as she examined photo albums of completed projects and the homes they transformed. All these years I thought we were supporting you by pushing toward conventional success. I never realized you had already found something more valuable. Their recognition did not erase years of dismissal, but it opened space for a different relationship. I did not need their approval anymore, which paradoxically made it easier to accept when offered. My worth had been established through consistent creation and integrity, not external validation. The healing process required honest conversations about painful patterns. During one particularly meaningful dinner at my home rather than theirs, we discussed the favoritism that had shaped our family dynamics. We always thought Jason needed more support because his path seemed harder. Dad admitted, academic pressure, corporate competition. Your natural talents made your path seem effortless by comparison. But it was not effortless, I explained. I just faced different challenges that were invisible to you because they did not fit your definition of struggle. Watching them gradually understand this truth brought neither vindication nor resentment, but a quiet hope that growth remained possible at any stage of life. Jason, now facing community service and career rehabilitation, found unexpected wisdom in his fall from grace. I built my identity on impressing others, he reflected during a Saturday spent helping in my workshop. You built yours on creating work that impressed yourself first. The difference matters. The most profound lesson emerged gradually through this family transformation. Success defined solely by external metrics offers fragile satisfaction that collapses when those metrics shift. True fulfillment comes from aligning actions with personal values and creating work with integrity regardless of recognition. I discovered strength in staying true to my path, despite years of subtle and overt criticism. Each project completed with excellence became a quiet rebellion against the pressure to conform to others' definitions of achievement. The validation eventually arrived not because I sought it, but because quality work ultimately speaks for itself. The freedom I found wasn't in proving critics wrong, but in releasing the need for their approval altogether. My hands would continue creating beautiful, functional pieces, whether or not my family finally recognized their value. That independence became the most precious thing I built. So, what would you do if someone underestimated your passion or dismissed your dreams? Would you argue to convince them or simply build something so excellent they eventually question their own judgment? Comment below with your thoughts. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe to hear more authentic life experiences. Share this video with someone who might need permission to follow their unique path. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember that true success leaves your integrity intact when everything else is stripped away.